Oh, that's bloody hilarious.
Philip, what's so funny?
The almost 30-minute quiz show. Listen, Lizzie.
You're right. That's freaking awesome. Subscribe today.
Hear, hear.
The almost 30-minute quiz show is leaving from platform 4. Coming up, correcting the correction of political correctness or flame fanning the banning bandwagon.
How do you have sex at 2 meters? We hear about the world's most unpopular beach bum, and we bring you the multinational Big Mac mix.
Gwyneth P is back with a bang, maybe literally, on the almost 30-minute quiz show.
Chuck.
You're the second person to throw a northern epithet at me today.
It's about the only sort of accent that's not been banned recently. Although I'm sure I'm offending some northerners out there, having lived up north though for 20 years. Northern England.
Are you suggesting now that it is dangerous to say things?
Well, people get offended by most things.
What about freedom of speech?
That offends me. People should not be free to say what they want.
Do you know, I found out, or I heard a libertarian judge on, I know it was Fox TV, unfortunately.
Was it on like a game show?
No, seriously.
Dancing with the Stars.
Your
dancing is way, way, way too right-wing. Move to the left a bit.
Not Liberace, libertarian. And he said that freedom of speech works in every single instance with one exception. The only time that you can be done for speech is within a case of incitement, where you say to somebody, pick up that gun now and shoot it at that person now. So in other words, it's not only an incitement, but it is also an immediate time-driven thing. And that's the only time that you can't get away with it in the United States.
Does that include threats?
No, threats are fine.
Apparently not, though.
Well...
I remember a case 2 years ago. There was a comedian whose flight was cancelled at an airport in Durham in the north of England. Mm-hmm. And on his Twitter page, he said, if it's late tomorrow, I'm going to blow up the airport. And he was arrested. But
that's in the UK.
Okay.
I was talking about America. But we're going to do lots more about what is PC and what is not PC. I think that'll be a dominating part of today's
Police constable. And they're offensive, apparently. We need to defund them.
Should we do the questions?
Shall I do question 1?
You always do question 1.
Question 1. What do the Washington NFL franchise, the Atlanta NBA franchise, and the Cleveland Major League Baseball franchise have in common?
Question 2. Which R word means a time for solitude, reflection, prayer, and meditation?
Question number 3. Which mayor is friends with Ronald McDonald?
Question 4. Which university, featured in the Big Bang Theory, was ranked second in the World University Rankings for 2020?
And question number 5. Who won an Academy Award in 1998 for her performance in Shakespeare in Love? It's a tough one, that. We've never mentioned this person before, ever, on our show.
You can listen to the almost 30-minute quiz show on Stitcher, Castbox, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and all great podcast providers. So subscribe now and write a lovely review.
Question 1. What do the Washington NFL franchise, Atlanta NBA franchise, and Cleveland Major League Baseball franchise all have in common?
They've run out of knees.
Possibly.
Is it a knee thing?
None of them are playing at the moment.
Is it a knee thing?
No.
Okay, it's not a taking a knee thing.
We did that last time. We've moved on. The world's moved on.
Right. Are all of the stadia built on Native American lands?
You're getting warm.
Really?
The Native American or Indigenous American.
Oh, wait a minute. They've all had to change their name because they're like the Redskins and the Red Sox and the...
Sort of. I'll explain it.
Go on.
They haven't actually changed their name. These are people that still kept their name. The Washington Redskins still exist, the Atlanta Braves, and the Cleveland Indians.
Is there pressure on them to change their names?
There's pressure on everybody at the moment to change their names.
Which is
what we
want to
talk about now.
So I just want to tell you a story. When I was a little kid, I remember in Manchester, my parents taking me to the Palace Theatre. We didn't go to theatre very often. And we got nice tickets to see something called the Black and White Minstrel Show, which was a group all blacked up and singing Negro spirituals, as they were called at the time, and just generally black songs. Now, everybody in there, I assume, was white. When I was a kid,
Why do you assume that?
well, it looked like everybody's face was painted. I'm just assuming.
Oh, you mean in the minstrels? I thought you meant in the audience.
No. Well, actually, it was probably a very white audience. Probably most black people in Manchester at the time couldn't afford to buy theatre tickets. Talking about in the early 70s.
Okay.
I enjoyed it, and I didn't think anything of it, and I didn't come away thinking all black people or we're exploiting them or anything like that.
You didn't think they were funny because of the extra white paint around the lips and
But
the way the
but that
features
was
were
just
and
a
around the eyes.
theatrical, dramatic emphasis. That's the way I saw it as a small child.
Yeah.
But here we are 50 years later.
The black and white minstrels were one of the first things that were banned. They've been off the telly for 30 years. Apart from, I was watching Little Britain over the last 6 months with my son.
Just tell us what Little Britain is
Little
for people
Britain
who
is
don't know.
a sketch show with Matt Lucas and David Walliams, who we actually saw before they became famous in Edinburgh about 25 years ago. And it's a series of sketches with characters, extreme characters who you would never meet in real life. There's a woman who's like from a church social group, and every time she finds out that the scone or the biscuit she's eaten has been made by somebody who's gay or black, she vomits. But it's done to sort of highlight, these people who are still racist and are still worried about eating a scone made by somebody who is Afro-Caribbean is ridiculous.
And we should point out that one of them, is it Matt Lucas,
He's Jewish and he's gay.
right,
And there is a character that he plays called Daffeth,
who's the only
the
gay in
only
the
gay in the
village.
village, and he wears ridiculous clothes, and he says lots of homophobic things like, I'm going to get some todger tonight.
Has that been taken off the air?
So the BBC took it off air this week. And David Williams and Matt Lucas have apologised for the offence that they've caused. They did a follow-up show called Come Fly With Me, which was based in an airport.
Yes, yeah.
And some of the characterisations there were maybe a little bit closer to the mark. There was a Caribbean lady who worked in the coffee shop, and she was always trying to skive off work. And I think they were more offended, partly by the sort of faux Jamaican accent they did, and the fact that they were trying to imply that this lady was lazy, and therefore people might think that. But if you look at the characters in Little Britain, there was a guy who had this massively overweight ex-wife who he met at a health farm, and he left her for an even bigger black woman, which was David Walliams, blacked up. They are two white guys putting on a show together. What do you do if you are two people putting on a show together and you want to have black characters?
I can quote Fawlty Towers pretty much all 13 episodes by heart.
Which, as it happens, was taken off a number of, I think, BBC iPlayer and then returned.
The reason it was taken off was nothing to do with people who are black or African Americans, but rather making fun of Germans.
Yeah, and there are a lot of offensive anti-black and anti-Indian comments.
Not only that,
but it's a character who's like senile and old school.
But there's an
1900s.
entire episode making fun of deaf people.
Yes.
Now, that surely is worse than an off-the-cuff, well, it's scripted, but an off-the-cuff comment about Germans.
Yeah, and Little Britain is full of characters with disabilities. A woman who constantly urinates on the floor while talking because she can't control her bladder. A character who's sat in a wheelchair the whole time but is actually faking it.
Where do we draw the line? We've got a list here of 15, 20 cases that have been in the media over the last week or two of things that have been removed, or people are calling for their removal because they are perceived to be of racist nature in one form or another, or phobic. Where do you draw the line?
I think it's very difficult. I don't think there is a sort of yes or no answer, because different people are offended by different things. So I saw a number of comedians and authors, and not right-wing comedians like Jim Davidson, people like Stephen Fry, Ricky Gervais, John Cleese, were discussing offence and how people are too easily offended. So I think you've got to look at it and say, look at the context when this was made. I think Gone with the Wind was taken off of some stations because it glorified slavery in the 1930s, 1940s in America.
Is it fair for you and me, as fairly middle-class white folk, to even be having this conversation?
I don't see why not. We want to be in a position where everybody on this earth is treated equally. And in some cases, you may need some sort of positive discrimination. I think we were having a chat about football and football managers and football commentators and people like that. And that there is a dearth of black and female football commentators. There is, I think, 5 or 6 football managers in England out of 92, whereas there are 30 to 40% of the players are black. And people aren't getting the opportunities. I think where there should be an amount of people proportionately, then I think it's fair to say people need to do more to improve the opportunities of those people not getting a chance. But they have to be good enough. There has to be a standard. You don't just put somebody in position to do that. But
should an Irishman laugh at the Irish? An Irish comedian, say, should an Irish comedian to poke fun at Irish?
Well, I mean, that's one of the big topics people have. The use of the N-word. A lot of black people use the N-word. And, you know, it's very difficult to call people up and say you shouldn't use that word.
They've appropriated the word in order to say it's okay for us, and we're going to take what you turned into, you know, an abusive word, we're going to turn it into something that is almost a term of endearment for ourselves, but woe betide you if you use it.
Yeah, but is that really fair to say I can use this word, but you can't? And then to use it in a conversation with somebody, and then take offence when they use it. So
let's, for example, we're British. Let's say, for example, Americans suddenly decide they're going to make fun of the Brits, like seriously make fun of the Brits. You would probably find it offensive. But
they call us limeys.
Okay, but if a fellow Brit made the same joke, you probably laugh. But if a German or an Italian or a Japanese or someone that we've been at war with were to make that same joke, you would view it differently. So I don't think you can say, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander in the case of racism.
I think you have to look at context. I think, take the Gone with the Wind story. In the 1940s, slavery existed in America. When the film was being made, the film was representing the time. And it existed. You can't deny its existence. It doesn't mean it was a great thing, but it was what happened at the time. It's like saying you can't make films about the Holocaust because that would offend Jewish people. You know, the history is there, and you have to live and understand the history.
And not erase it.
Correct. I mean, there were calls to get rid of statues of Gandhi, George Washington. You know, George Washington founded America. You know, yes, it was in a period when there were slaves, and he possibly was or had slaves working for him at the time. But you can't take away from the fact that George Washington founded America. Gandhi was the founder of modern India. Some people say he was a racist. I mean, he was certainly anti-English, but he believed in peaceful protest. Why would you want to remove a statue of Mahatma Gandhi? Yet some of the people out there trying to rewrite history are doing that at the moment.
Well, bugger me sideways. Brian Blessed here. The almost 30-minute quiz show is hilarious. Find them on all trusted podcast providers. Subscribe now. Bollocks. I've been goose, darlings. Get off. Don't touch my ass.
Question 2. Which R word means a time for solitude, reflection, prayer, and meditation?
Is it a retreat, David?
Since you wrote the question, I'm glad you knew the answer.
I thought we'd get on with the fun bit rather than me guessing something I wrote.
Okay, so we'll get to the retreat soon enough, but we're going to look at
And it's not about the Italian army.
First joke of the
that's
day.
offensive to Italians. I'm very sorry.
So here are some stories that have been making the headlines around the world. And this one comes from West Virginia, which I believe is in the United States of America. A gentleman who was pulled over by the police last week was driving without headlights. In addition to driving without headlights, they also asked him to breathalyze, at which point he claimed he had asthma and suggested he was in the middle of an asthma attack rather than taking the breath test. And then he decided to break wind rectally.
Is there another way of doing it? I expect you to put your hand under your armpit.
Well, yeah, or you could burp. That's kind of breaking wind. We just don't call it that.
I have to admit, I've never gone around and said, excuse me, I've just broken wind rectally.
And according to the officer who arrested him, he used his hands in a fanning motion to waft said smell in the direction of police officer. Apparently, since then, he has been let off, as it were, but is still going to be standing trial for the driving without headlights and driving whilst under the influence of alcohol.
So maybe the R word should have been arse.
Arr.
So I have the story of a gentleman named Daniel Thorson. And Daniel has been away in northwest Vermont in a Buddhist monastic retreat.
Okay. Good for him.
He was there. He went at the beginning of March and he went away for around 75 days. When he got out, the first thing he did was obviously go on Twitter and go, I'm back from 75 days in silence. Did I miss anything? To which somebody underneath wrote, yes, I think you've missed history on steroids. Mr. Thorson then heads off to a grocery store and he goes, people at the grocery store seem a bit more anxious than I remember them.
And if we're talking about weird times, it might be 32 degrees Celsius or 90 Fahrenheit in Florida right now, which of course is the time for people to hit the beaches. Somebody was rather upset that social distancing, mask wearing and so on were not being upheld on said beaches. One that Daniel Ulfelder...
Say that again?
I can't. Ulfelder, he decided he'd had enough of this and, despite the heat, dressed up in a large black cloak carrying a scythe and declared himself to be the Grim Reaper and basically went up to people and said, I'm here because you're going to die, and if you're not going to die, you're going to spread the disease and other people are going to die. Rather than him being punished, he's actually become something of a cause célèbre, appearing on Saturday Night Live and a variety of other TV shows, and he's made quite a bit of money out of this, all of which he's donating to the Democratic Party.
Boo. Hooray. Boo. We don't do politics. So I'd like to bring you the story of Ian Bell, who is age 55 and a traveller from Carlisle. So Ian was feeling a bit petulant, went out with his 7-year-old horse, John, who was pulling a cart. So what does Ian do? He decides at KFC and he orders a bargain bucket, at which point the manager comes running out of the store, goes, I'm sorry, I'm through here. Ian says, I can't believe what I'm hearing. I've done nothing wrong. John is such a well-behaved horse. The manager goes, I'm sorry, we're not allowed horses here. It's a health and safety risk. So Ian and John trot off and go off to McDonald's. So Ian then goes to the Metro newspaper and complains and says, look what happened to me. KFC then released the following statement. Hold your horses, Carlisle. We're not looking to stir up trouble.
Oh, God, what a nightmare.
Oh.
Sorry. And
Oh,
finally for this section, Richard Stanley and his partner Janet Dixon not only are rather wealthy and allow television channels to come and view their home and broadcast TV shows about it, but they also, well, the reason they got rich is they host sex parties. They've hosted a variety of themed sex parties and decided that they wanted to hold one now, which they're calling COVID-19 compatible. Now, that means, of course, that only couples who live with each other are allowed to engage in lewd acts. What they've said is, or the way they're advertising it, is that it's going to be a voyeurs and monogamists alfresco sex party. So you can either pay to come and have sex in one part or another of their large mansion and its grounds, or you can come and watch.
So no throwing keys in a bowl and picking them out while wearing a rubber glove.
I think that went out with the black and white minstrels.
Although the rubber glove... Anyway, let's go there. Write to us at almost30quiz@gmail.com, 30 being letters and not numbers, almost30quiz@gmail.com. We can also be found on Twitter at almostquiz, on Facebook, the Almost 30 Minute Quiz Show, and on Instagram at the Almost 30 Minute. Question number 3. Which mayor is friends with Ronald McDonald?
Is this a mayor in America, a real mayor?
No. Ronald McDonald is a clown. He's not a
Yes.
real person. Sorry to disturb.
Is this like from a TV ad?
Yes. And there was a whole series of characters that used to hang around with Ronald McDonald.
I'm afraid, being a vegetarian, I couldn't possibly answer.
This is going to be a shit round then.
Go on.
It's a McDonald's themed round.
Go on.
Mayor McCheese.
Oh, there you go.
Do you not remember Mayor McCheese?
No.
No. Okay.
Does anybody remember Mayor? If you remember Mayor McCheese, please write in.
And there was the Hamburglar. Do you remember the Hamburglar?
No, but it's a great name.
Yeah, he was a robber.
Funnily enough.
Mm-hmm. So, I found this great article full of different McDonald's foods from around the world that we don't get back in England or America or anywhere that I've ever been. You have to try. I'm going to give you a name and a description, and you have to try and guess where they come from. You ready?
Just who, me?
Yeah. Because you're a McDonald's expert.
And because I'm your only friend.
It's also true.
Yeah.
No, I've got other friends as well, but they're just not as funny as you.
They must
Sorry,
be
Jeremy.
really sad. Yeah.
Okay. Where would you get a McToaster chocolate, which is like a pita bread with melted chocolate inside?
France.
Germany.
Okay, I was close.
Yes.
Doesn't sound like a very German
I'll give you
thing.
an easier one.
Okay.
This is a McCurry, which is a pastry casing
Mm-hmm.
full of vegetable curry.
The East End of London. Or India.
Yeah, let's go with India and stay
Okay.
away from the racism, David.
It's not racism. I mean, there is a large Indian and Pakistani
There's a better one
community.
in Manchester, the Curry Mile.
Right, exactly. I don't think it's racist.
Are we sure?
Put it to the vote. You know where to email us.
Question number 3. Spinach and parmesan nuggets.
Spinach.
Spinach. This is for vegetarians.
Spinach and parmesan
So far, the
nuggets.
first 3 have all been
This
vegetarian.
one sounds really good. Spinach and parmesan nuggets.
It's like a deep-fried cheesy ball with spinach in it and covered in breadcrumbs.
Italy?
Correct.
Okay.
Good one. A McLobster. This might not be for you.
Okay, so that one I would say the Caribbean or Florida.
No, further north.
Oh, Canada?
Canada.
Okay.
It's a bap with crushed lobster in it.
Sounds yummy, actually.
And on the fishy theme,
Yes.
bread-covered shrimp called the McShrimp.
Florida, Mississippi, Missouri.
Different continent. Incontinent. Different continent.
Different continent. What do you say, McShrimp?
McShrimp. It probably isn't called that where it comes from, but it's translated as
So it's
McShrimp.
got to be somewhere that's got water. Funnily
Yes,
enough.
large coastline.
Like Russia.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
I didn't know they did seafood in Russia.
McCrocket, which is a potato croquette
Ireland.
inside a bun.
Ireland.
No. Right continent.
Potato. Well, it's not Germany.
It's a flat potato.
Belgium. Holland.
Correct.
This is a good game.
Sounds
I like
nice,
this.
doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
I
That,
quite
I really
fancy a
fancy that.
McCrocket.
Yep, yep.
Okay. This one will throw you off. The cordon bleu burger, which seems to be a burger, cheese, then a hash brown and bacon in a garlic and onion bun.
Ooh. If I wasn't vegetarian, I'd go for that.
The cordon bleu burger. Which
Okay.
country has that?
Oh, jeez.
We've been there.
We've been there. Ukraine.
Close.
Poland.
Correct.
Okay.
The bacon roll.
Denmark. Do you know, just as a complete aside, do you say to a Brit, Danish, what do you think of? Bacon.
Bacon.
Right? If you say Danish to an American,
Pastry.
I know, and then when you say to them, no, it's bacon, they think you're mad. Well, they think I'm mad anyway.
Okay.
But yes,
I did like, because I said we wouldn't be covering certain countries, but a bacon roll.
Israel.
Saudi Arabia?
Go on.
A bit close to home.
Closer to home. Oh.
Where likes a good bacon roll for breakfast? In
The United
fryer?
Kingdom.
Correct.
Okay. You can tell I don't go to McDonald's.
This is a tough one. A Georgie pie or a Georgie pie. Georgie pie,
George,
which
what's
is
in it?
a meat pie with a cheese layer in pastry and looks bloody nice.
That could be anywhere. Let's go for. Is it European?
No. Far away in the distance on a farm overlooking a bay in the middle of nowhere.
What, New Zealand?
Correct.
Oh, we're moving. What's it called? A Georgie farm?
A Georgie pie.
A Georgie farm. We're going for that. Apparently, I just watched a travel show and they said New Zealand is famous for its meat pies.
That I didn't know.
Yeah, me neither.
There you go. The chicken McDo and spaghetti, which is a drumstick of chicken and a plate of spaghetti.
Wherever my son lives, because he would worship that. I could be anywhere. Greece.
No.
Go on.
Far East somewhere.
Japan.
Philippines.
Oh,
That was nice, though.
yeah. Any others before we
Okay.
close?
These are not minstrels. These are the black and white burgers. There's a white burger and a black burger. And the black one contains bacon and meat, and the white one seems to contain maybe fish and bacon. But the actual bread is white on one, black on the other. Black and white burgers.
Caribbean.
China.
I was close.
2 more.
Go on.
The bubblegum squash McFlurry.
Oh my gosh, what's that made from?
It's ice cream with a blue sauce and marshmallows on top.
This is in a burger, or this is just
No,
something
this
that's
McFlurry is a dessert. It's like an ice cream. God, you really need to get to McDonald's.
Mexico?
Australia, mate.
Okay.
And finally, to finish off, matcha red bean layer cake.
Mexico.
No.
Oh, I don't even know
Guess
what
what colour a matcha red bean layer cake is?
green.
Correct.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. What
With
is
red
it?
beans in it.
What is it?
Hong Kong.
But what's it made from?
Mush and matcha and red beans.
Okay. Interesting. Really, really interesting. And the trouble is, right, if it was a normal restaurant, you'd have all of those things on one menu.
Yeah.
You've just got to go around the world to get them.
Yeah. Should we do that?
Absolutely. Air Miles, here we come.
This episode of the Almost 30-Minute Quiz Show is brought to you by Story Slam, the award-winning storytelling game for the whole family. We guarantee you'll love it. Story Slam. Find us on Amazon.com.
Question 4. Mark, which university featured in the Big Bang Theory and it was ranked second in the World University Rankings for 2020?
I was in California
Yeah.
because I remember they were in Pasadena, and I've been to Pasadena once.
Yes.
Unimpressive.
Yes.
A technical place because Sheldon was a professor.
Technical.
Or something. Technical.
Yes. They were all professors.
No, give up.
Oh, come on. It's Californian and it's technical.
Cal Tech,
Well done, old bean. Which was number 1?
Oxford,
Of course.
I think, or Cambridge, one of those.
Well, doesn't matter which, really. As long as it's British.
Whichever one wasn't top was number 3. Oxford and Cambridge were number 1, number 3. Oh, but this is according to the Times educational supplement, so there may be a slight bias.
So now we're going to talk about some professors who maybe won't make it to the top of the rankings. We're talking about the people who are in the Rate My Professor grouping, where people get the chance to either praise or, more often and more amusingly, slag off their teacher.
I'll start with this very gentle review of Professor Elizabeth Latshaw at Auburn University in Alabama. Whatever you do, agree with her on all issues, praise her and tell her she is the greatest, fall down to your knees and worship her, then maybe, just maybe, you might get a B.
And regarding political science professor Henry Kim at the University of Arizona, when I actually do go to a class halfway through, I begin to hate God for giving me the legs that brought me there.
Professor Frank Kowalski at the Colorado School of Mines. The worst memory I have of Kowalski was when I stopped by his posted off hours to ask him a question, and he was in his boxers and wife beater.
And even at Yale, this regarding the history professor John Farrager. I worked my butt off to get into Yale. When I say worked my butt off, I mean my dad called in a favour, and the very first class I have is with this tool.
Professor Johann Belinfante at Georgia Tech. Once or twice his theory talk was interesting, but other than that, the only thing that keeps the blood in my brain flowing is wondering what the hell is up with the fanny pack.
And mathematics professor Ronnie Crane in Hawaii Public University. She looks like a fried Barbie doll and acts like one too.
Professor Nagaraja Thanthri at Wichita State. He looks like Bert from Sesame Street.
That's not really his fault.
Which one was the ugly one, Bert or Ernie?
Bert's the one with no hair.
We had the little tuft of hair in the eyebrow.
Yeah, the eyebrows. Yeah.
Yeah, Ernie's all right. That's an insult.
Business professor Roland Buck at Morehead State in Kentucky. Take him if you need the class, but come prepared with an energy drink and a colouring book because that's the only way that you're going to last.
Professor John Mosier at Loyola University. Don't forget the daily quizzes that ask the colour of the character's last bowel movement. These are great.
Oh, God. Regarding biology professor Kurt Regner at Nevada, Las Vegas. It's like the biology department wanted to play a practical joke on us. I hoped on the last day the dean would come in and say, "Gotcha!" But it never happened.
Professor Daleen Stangl, that's a great name, at Duke University. Smells like old Band-Aids. What more can I say?
Fine arts professor Louis Alonso at Rhode Island School of Design. I love this one. He took photographs of a young, pretty figure model and then never used them in his class.
We've all done that, haven't we?
Oh, God.
Professor Leslie Conn at the Citadel. If I had a choice between taking another one of Professor Conn's classes and being saturated with brown gravy and locked in a room with a Wolverine that is high on PCP, then I honestly believe that I would choose the latter of these two choices.
Excellent. And I always wondered what happened to photographer David Bailey, but maybe it is him, who is now a sociology professor at Sam Houston State University. How can you teach a marriage course when you've been divorced 3 times?
Question number 5. Who won an Academy Award in 1998 for her performance in Shakespeare in Love?
Meryl Streep.
No.
Bette Midler.
She's won loads though, Meryl.
Yeah,
Streep.
Meryl Streep's the standard answer for the most female
Hey,
Oscars.
she didn't win. She's been like nominated for every film that she goes and sees.
Who's the one who plays the Queen?
Helen Mirren.
Yes, Helen Mirren.
Oh, I've got a thing for Helen Mirren.
Honestly, you're so un-PC. Or you appreciate her acting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what are you talking about?
Ginger Rogers.
Is she?
That's Rogers Ginger. Who is it?
We may have mentioned it once on this show.
Oh, it's not her with the Welsh name.
Gwyneth.
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow.
She's not Welsh, is she? Good question.
No, I think she's American.
I'll find out what
I think her father is of Polish origin or something, or Russian.
Paltrowski.
Yeah, I think they appeared on Who Do You Think You Are?
I'm going to look it up while you introduce this segment.
So you'll never guess why we're talking about Gwyneth. What did we talk about last time? Her vagina-scented candle that was available for $70 on her website Goop, which is bad enough that you have a company called Goop.
Oh, can I just stop you before you carry on? She's American-born.
Yeah.
She was born as Gwyneth Kate Paltrow in 1972 in Los Angeles, California. Apparently, she's a singer, an entrepreneur, and a writer, as well as being an actress. Her father was Bruce Paltrow and mother Blythe Dana.
Blythe Dana.
Oh, do you know who it is?
She's an actress.
Oh, there you go. God, you know so much.
But you never found out where the family were from, historically.
I'll
You
keep
carry
reading.
on.
All right.
So, this Tuesday, Gwyneth Paltrow went on the Jimmy Fallon show to launch yet another new scented candle, but this one doesn't smell like her vagina. Her new candle is called This Smells Like My Orgasm. But this one is especially to give to your wife. What does Gwyneth's orgasm smell like?
Quite know where to go with that.
I'll tell you, and then we'll end it on
Go
this
on that.
particular low note. Gwyneth Paltrow's candle is made with tart grapefruit, neroli, ripe cassis berries, and blended with gunpowder tea and Turkish rose absolutes.
Oh, interesting.
Gunpowder.
Yeah, but maybe as a cocktail. Do you know who a Godfather is?
Godfather. Frank Sinatra.
Not bad. Steven Spielberg or Spielberg.
Spielberg.
Paltrow's paternal great-great-grandfather was a rabbi in Novigrad in Poland and a descendant of the well-known Paltrowitz family of rabbis from Krakow.
Oh, we were going to Krakow.
We were. We could have visited the grave.
And put a candle on it.